Happy Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. Have we turned a corner when it comes to this overall summer pattern? It feels like over the course of the weekend things changed a little bit. We did see more in the way of lower pressure and a lot more in the way of rainfall. But is it a bump in the road or is it something more significant? That is going to be the question. This is rainfall over the last 72 hours across Europe, and we've seen a decent amount of rain across UK, Ireland, France, Low Countries, Germany, into the Alpine region, talking about very significant heat across parts of southern Europe, around the Sicily area, temperatures approaching the mid-40s expected, into the Balkan region, into Greece, Turkey, up north of the Black Sea, in the Ukraine, western areas of Russia, and we're remaining hot across Scandinavia. So if we look at the rainfall totals for the UK specifically, this is over the last 72 hours as well. And, we had a decent soaking across the southeast over the weekend, over eastern portions of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and over the last 24 hours, a significant amount of rain across the north and west of Scotland, where we've seen flash flooding around the Perth area. We also seen damage due to flooding in parts of West Highland as well. And even over the last 24 hours or so, we've seen some pretty significant amounts of rain. So this is a 24-hour look at the rainfall. So you can see that here. Is that the right graphic? I hope it is. Just bear with a second here. Yep, this is the last 24 hours, I believe, anyway. And you're talking 50 plus millimeters falling widely from Loch Liscarnock down to the first area, or Tulloch Bridge. And this was the scenes. We actually had a thunderstorm sweep across the Perth area of eastern Scotland. We've seen upwards of 62 millimeters of rainfall within a 2-hour window. You can see here, this is a SEPA rain gauge representing the 36-hour rainfall of 62 plus millimeters of rain. So that's 36 hours, but we actually seen that falling within a 2-hour window. This was the scene in the Craigie area of Perth. So yep, a lot of standing water. I believe there was around about 34 millimeters of rain fell within a single hour, which is 2 weeks worth of rain falling within an hour in and around the Perth area of the eastern side of Scotland. Another scene here. And here at Marvelling Weather HQ, I did set a new record of 18.80 millimeters of rain falling during the course of Saturday. That was completely blown out of the water yesterday, where we've seen between about mid-morning yesterday through last night, upwards of just shy of 35 millimeters of rain, making it the wettest day on record for a very short period of time. Of course, it's only about 3 years online, this station, but nevertheless, the point being is this a sign of something different as we move into the second portions of the summer? This was, by the way, the scene from the Loch Dromer area yesterday. Upwards of 60 millimeters of rain fell during the course of yesterday. This is a scene from Corrie Shallock Gorge from Highland Weather on Facebook. Be sure to give Highland Weather a follow. And this is the damage here from the Achanault train station due to the floodwaters yesterday. So MJO is progressing eastwards across the Pacific. You can see here this graphic showing the eastward progress of the upward motion. I'll get there in the end. So you can see here, this is as of today, 21st of July. In fact, it was yesterday actually. It's Tuesday 22nd, of course, now getting confused in my days, but you can see a significant eastward progress in the greens representing upward motion. You notice here that we've lost the oranges over the Atlantic basin, so we are keeping an eye on a feature over the central main development region of the Atlantic for possible development, but dusty air shear is prohibiting this from blossoming into anything significant anytime soon. There's a 20% chance of development according to NHC, but the difference is that we're kind of releasing this atmosphere over the Atlantic basin, taking away the lid and allowing a bit more of an atmospheric breathe, so to speak, if that's the right term, probably not. But you can see here that we've lost the deep oranges here. We skip back. You can see here that we see this eastward Kelvin wave progressing across the Pacific. That is then changing the overall pattern within the mid and upper levels of the northern hemisphere, and we've got this lack of subsidence now over the Atlantic basin. However, as we progress towards the end of the month, the GFS ensemble is seeing the return of something more in the way of sinking over the Atlantic basin. There is a clear signal as we head into the month of August that the models are holding this upward motion back west over the Pacific as opposed to over the Atlantic here. This is not a particularly strong signal for an increase in tropical activity over the Atlantic basin, but also it may have a correspondence to a similar type of pattern that we've seen all along through June and July. Remember, we have had a few breaks here and there in terms of the heat, high pressure, etc., but it's always built back in. If you look at the longer range models here, this is a GFS ensemble first and foremost, and I want to draw your attention to the big picture here. So we're looking obviously at the global view here. You've got over the next 7 days, according to the GFS ensemble, high pressure slightly to the west of the UK and Ireland. Generally, our flow would come in more from a west and northwesterly direction, introducing something a little bit less warm. I think as we move through the final week or so, or what's left of July, we don't have a tremendous signal for heat as such. But as we play through this loop into the 4 through 11, and then the 6 through 14, and 7 through 14, you see the high always kind of leaning in towards the UK and Ireland, troughiness to the north, possibly a bit of a northwesterly component to that flow with the position of the high slightly to the west. But we continue to play through this loop into the first full week of August. The high is trying to build back in over the UK and Ireland, troughiness up towards Iceland and Greenland here. Let's have a look at the ECMWF extended and see the same kind of overall pattern here. So essentially, not a great deal of significant change. In other words, we still have that high pressure holding firm south of the UK, with heat always threatening the southern half of the UK, something a little bit more in the way of lower pressure, more unsettled, cooler conditions up towards Scotland and further north here. As we play through this loop, like the GFS ensemble, it's having that high, perhaps centred just to the west of the UK and Ireland. So again, something a little bit less in the way of real heat. But play through this loop, you notice here that the high, very similar to June and July, may I add so far anyway. Low pressure to the north, high pressure largely over the UK and Ireland here. And we continue to play through all the way out to the middle and even the second half of August. The high is wanting to dominate the overall pattern. Moving on then to the CFS V2, and you can see here that if we play through this loop, very similar story. Low pressure to the north, higher pressure to the south. The question mark will be, do we get more heat waves this summer, or have we kind of broken the back of this hot, dry overall first half of the summer, something a little bit less hot, but perhaps still high pressure dominated as we progress into the month of August and the final month of meteorological summer. Let's look at the CFS V2 weeklies then. We'll see here the trough now starting to move into central areas of Europe. High pressure trying to build back in. We do have warmer air building back in, by the way, Wednesday, Thursday, as we progress into the second half of this week. But this is the CFSV2 weeklies for the next 7 days. Into week 2, low pressure to the north, higher pressure to the south. Yes, you've got a little bit of a potential northwest or west-northwest component to the flow. That would be something a little bit less warm. And then into week 3, this is 5th through the 12th of August here. Generally, high pressure is dominating. So it looks as if that the MJO, without bodily moving into the Atlantic Basin and then really start to trigger the tropics within the Atlantic Basin, there might not be a huge amount of change. The only thing that may change is the intensity of the heat. We're now starting to see the soils become a little bit wetter, especially the further north you go over the UK and Ireland. The drier they are further south, there's always an opportunity for more heat. I think August will still see heat and heat waves, especially across the southern half of the UK. But nevertheless, this is rather interesting how the modelling is trying to hold this high underneath low pressure scenario here. Looking at the precipitation, then you can see here week 1 drier than average actually, which is quite interesting. Into week 2, wet north, dry south. Into week 3, drier than average. Week 4, drier than average. So yeah, there's a bit of a kind of tendency towards something similar to what we've seen in terms of temperature anomalies over the next 7 days, according to the CFSV2, with that west-northwest component, cooler than average. Into week 2, again, not too bad. And then into week 3, we start to see warming trend week 3 and week 4, which heads us into, perhaps the back half of week 1 into week 2 of August here. So rather interesting stuff. We're certainly getting a wee bit of a reprieve from the warm weather that we've seen so far this summer. I think it's going to come back, if I'm being quite honest with you. That's what I'm kind of leaning towards anyway. And we'll wait and see what happens. But these are the current temperatures across Europe at the moment here. And you can see that we've got 30s all the way up into the Arctic. Interesting, last night I was watching lightning activity over the far north of Scandinavia here. I thought this is an area you don't often see thunderstorms. And that's been quite persistent during the course of late last night. And even into the course of today, we've seen some lightning activity up across the Arctic region of Europe here. Something fresher across the UK and Ireland, as can be seen here. Seasonably hot across central and southern Iberia. And we've got some pretty intense heat across Italy, into Greece, Turkey, Balkan region here as we progress through this afternoon. Looking specifically at the UK then, you can see here, east is best in terms of warm weather, and it's something a little bit brighter. Temperatures into the low 20s down the eastern side of the UK, even into the south here, much fresher, 22, 23 Celsius. We are going to see an uptick in temperature with a ridge of high pressure trying to build in over the next few days here. So mid-20s, quite possible, returning. This is the latest visible satellite imagery here. Quite a messy picture over the UK, Ireland, into the near continent. High, dry, sunny, hot across much of Scandinavia. In the central areas of Europe here, we've got some disturbed weather and plenty of heat across the Mediterranean basin. Finally, looking at the latest radar imagery here, some shower activity over the eastern side of the UK, as well as Ireland, central areas of Ireland. We've got this system now moving eastwards, bringing some more appreciable rain across parts of Denmark, northern portions of Netherlands and Germany through the course of today. Thankfully, convection not too bad, but we do have some over Germany and Poland, as can be seen here. Further south, hot and sunny. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I do greatly appreciate each and everybody's comment, like and subscription. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Content 7 days a week, unbiased, unhyped. I hope you can stick around, and we'll continue to watch this pattern as we head into the firmly into the second half of meteorological summer. Bye for now.